All right, we're all set. We're good to go.
Welcome to the City of Burlingame City Council meeting on the 15th of March. We will start out with the Pledge of Allegiance, and let's have Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm sorry I had to take myself off mute. Please stand up and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownrigg. We will now do our roll call. Megan.
Councilmember Beach.
Here.
Councilmember Colson.
Here.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Here.
Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Here.
Mayor O'Brien.
Here. We did not have a closed session, so I'll go right back right into the upcoming events. Just a reminder that we do have our Fresh Market from 9 to 1:30 on Park Road and Burlingame Avenue. So I encourage all of you to attend. Also, this week we have the St. Patrick's Day Community Car Parade. That will start at 5 o'clock. And if you want to register, you can register at www.burlingame.org/Saint, or actually ST Pats. Or you can call 650-558-7300. The library has the Burlingame Reads 2021. There are discussions around environmental justice and equity. There are going to be events from April through July of this year. So if you want to also sign up for a copy of the Parable of the Sower, you can go to the Burlingame website for the library, which is www.burlingame.org/library/explore burlingamereads.php, or you can call 650-558-7400. And then lastly, I do want to mention the BCE Endowment hosts Burlingame Business Growth Conversation, and that is going to be on Wednesday, the 24th of March at 7:30. You can register by going to bcefoundation.org. We do have our city manager, Lisa Goldman, will be one of the speakers, in addition to Georgette Naylor, who is the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce. And we have Howard Wheaton, who is our the head of our Traffic and Safety Commission. So it should be an interesting evening. Do any of my colleagues want to add anything for upcoming events? Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to point out another event that the public may be interested in. You may notice there's a lot of construction going on US 101 right now of the express lanes. There's a special meeting this Thursday, March 18th from 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. that's focused on how to make those express lanes more equitable and make sure that everybody can access those lanes, even that are lower income, and what types of programs we might be able to fund to promote equity and mode shift. And so there's information on the San Mateo County Transportation Authority's website. If you look that up, San Mateo 101 Express Lane on the Transportation Authority's website. It's a 1-hour meeting from 5:30 to 6:30 this Thursday. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone else? All right, we will now go on to the next item on our agenda, which we have presentations this evening. We have the recognition of outgoing 2020-21 commissioners. And so we have quite a few this evening. So I'm going to go onto our attendees, and I'm hoping to see most of our outgoing commissioners on this list. So first of all, I would like to thank all our outgoing commissioners for their dedication to the city of Burlingame. They are our ears, our eyes and ears for the council. And we could not do our work without their input and their advice. And so I want to thank them for their years of dedication. So what I will do is I will actually go through each commissioner. And Megan, I think I may need your help on finding everyone on the attendee list, because if they want to make any comments, I want them to have the opportunity to do so. Okay, so first we are going to start out with Kirby Altman. He served from 2014 to 2020 on the Library Board of Trustees. So Kirby, do we have you on the line? I don't see him.
If you are there though, Kirby, you can raise your hand to let me know. I don't think so.
Okay, so we will go on to the next outgoing commissioner, who is Andrew Blanco. He served from 2016 to 2019, also on the Library Board of Trustees. Okay. I now have Christopher Bush. He served from 2015 to 2021. I would like to thank him for his dedicated service on the Traffic Safety and Parking Commission. I don't see him on our list. Okay. Also, Kiva Denori. She served from 2017 to 2021 as one of our commissioners on the Beautification Commission.
I don't believe she's with us tonight.
Okay. I think we have the next one, former Mayor Joseph Galligan. He served on the Measure I Citizens Oversight Committee from 2018 to 2021.
I see Helen G, so you'd like me to unmute?
Yeah, I do see actually Joe Galligan on here. So former Mayor Galligan, would you like to say a few words at all?
I've unmuted you if you would like. There you go.
I just thank the council for giving me the opportunity. It's a great city and it's great to serve for you.
Very good. Thank you very much for your service, both on the commission and also on our council. I would also like to thank Ann Hinkle, who served from 2010 to 2019 for her dedicated service as a member of the Beautification Commission.
Thank
And
you.
I'm sure many of you remember her from Earthbeam.
Yes. I would like to echo Joe Galligan. A privilege and a delight to serve our community. The Beautification Commission was a wonderful way to connect with the city, supporting and honoring our city as a tree city. And I am now a board member for the Burlingame Neighborhood Network and feel that that's another very important way to connect with Burlingame. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anne. Next, we have Neil Kaufman, who served on the Measure I Citizens Oversight Committee from 2018 to 2021.
I don't think he's with us tonight. Oh, well, no, never mind.
Okay. We now have Brendan Kelly, who was a member of the Planning Commission, who served from 2017 to 2019, and also is one of our firefighters in the city of Burlingame.
Hey everyone, Brendan.
Hi, Brendan. Would you like to say a few words?
Long time no see. Just want to say thanks for the opportunity. I learned a tremendous amount from the staff and the rest of my commissioners I served with, and hope along the line I had a positive impact somewhere.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Brendan. And yes, you did. So it was a pleasure having you on the commission. We have Sherry Lewis from who served on the Parks and Rec Commission from 2014 to 2020. Next, we have Jeffrey Launder, who served on the Traffic Safety and Commercial Parking Commission, from 2008 to 2020.
Hi, everybody.
I think we have him on the line. There we go, Jeff.
Yeah, hi. I just want to say it's been an honor and a privilege to serve these years. And I made a lot of friends, and I hope to continue to be involved with the city, although my eyes and my ears are both getting old and they're not the same as they used to be. So, but I'm around, and I'll hope to see you all around town when we're all safe and well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeff.
Mayor O'Brien, I do see Sherry Lewis on. I think we went a little quick with her. She might want to say something.
Okay.
Down near the bottom, Megan.
Here we go. Thank you. Sherry, would you like to say a few words? No, I think I lost.
No, we can't. We just can't hear her. Sherry, are you speaking?
Is she unmuted?
Yes.
Yes, she is.
Well, if you'd like to send
What I
a
might do is I'll continue on, and then Sherry, once we can get you on, we'll have you say a few words if you'd like. Next, I have former 5-time Mayor Rosalie Omahony, who served from 2010 to 2021 on the Storm Drain Citizens Oversight Committee. And I know we had her at a recent council meeting, but I'm not seeing her this evening. Next, I have Bob Palacio, who served on the Parks and Rec Commission from 2016 to 2019. And do we have him on the line? I don't think so. I now have Lisa Rosenthal, who served 2010 to 2019, and she was on the Library Board of Trustees.
Thank
I
you.
do see you, Lisa. There you go.
It was my supreme honor to be on the library board and be an advocate for our wonderful library. We're so lucky in Burlingame to have a thriving library. So thanks so much.
Well, thank you very much, Lisa, for serving on the board. You were quite an asset to our library community. And then I have Richard Sargent, who served on the Planning Commission from 2012 to 2021. And I do see you on our list. Would you like to say a few words, Richard?
Sure. I just wanted to thank the council for having the confidence in me to appoint me and then reappoint me. And I'd like also to say thanks to staff. They're so fantastic, and they make all us commissioners look really good. And it's just been an honor to serve the city, and I've learned a ton. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. Your work in Burlingame came in handy when you were on the Planning Commission. You had just so much expertise to offer on that board. I do want to say we did get Sherry Lewis from our through our chat. And so she just says here that she enjoyed her years on the Park and Rec Commission and was grateful to be able to be involved with the city of Burlingame. So thank you very much. Now, if there's anyone else on the line that would like to thank our commissioners or a commissioner that I may have missed.
Kiva did join us, Mayor O'Brien, after we got past her name.
Okay. So Kiva, would you like to say a few words? Because
Yeah, this is Kiva. I just wanted to say thank you. I had such a great experience being on the Burlingame Beautification Commission. And had I not moved to out of state, I would still be on the commission and would be glad to serve on it. And I wanted to thank everyone on the staff. And it was such a pleasure and such an honor to be on board on the commission. Thanks.
thank you very much, Kiva. And I hope you enjoy your new endeavors. All right, anyone else? Okay, so I will go back to my colleagues and I see that Councilmember Brownrigg has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I won't belabor this. I'm so glad that we're appreciating our commissioners, and I just would say two things. One, so many of you help out the community in so many ways that go beyond being on the commission. I mean, we would be here another half an hour if we listed everybody's contributions that go beyond just the commission work. So thank you for just being active and great participants in the community. And two, and the sad thing is that this year we didn't get to have a commissioner's dinner. And so, Madam Mayor, I wondered if we ought to extend an invitation to all of our departing commissioners whenever we are allowed to regroup for a commissioner's dinner, because that is another way that we like to give our commissioners a send off, and it's completely appropriate, and they all got gypped this year. So we all got gypped of so many things. Anyway, thanks to my friends and neighbors and residents for serving the city. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilmember Brownrigg, and I do think that's a good idea. I'm hoping that kind of depending on how things go, if we can do something, you know, when the weather warms up, end of summer, maybe early fall, if it's allowed, that would be a great time to be able to acknowledge all our outgoing commissioners and all our commissioners who have served for our city. Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I just want to just real quick say, we all are aware of the amount of work that you guys put in and really appreciate it. It definitely makes our job a lot easier having you out there. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right. We will go to our next item, which is our public comments. Members of the public may speak out about any item not on the agenda. Members of the public wishing to suggest an item for a future council agenda may do so during the public comment period. The Ralph M. Brown Act prohibits the city council from acting on any matter that is not on the agenda. So I'm going to open up the public comment. And is there anyone from the public that would like to speak? This is the time to raise your hand.
I don't, ooh, we have one.
No, we have somebody. We have Ann Hinkle.
One of the things that I didn't say when I spoke was mentioned by several other former commissioners, which is the quality of the staff that is provided for the commissioners is fantastic. Margaret, Bob Disco, all of the people that I was connected to with the Beautification Commission, they made our jobs work. Gina Borba, and I would imagine that that would be true for all of the commissions, that the city has such amazing staff. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Ann. I absolutely concur. We are so fortunate to have a phenomenal staff that help serve all our commissions, our city council, and the city of Burlingame. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? We have former Mayor Wayne Lee. Welcome. Wayne Lee is our former mayor from the city of Millbrae. So if you want to unmute yourself, Wayne.
Thank you, Mayor O'Brien and members of City Council, my friends. I'm here to speak on behalf of the San Mateo County Asian Pacific Islander Caucus. As you know, there has been many assaults against Asians and much to do with the labeling that was done by the government. And lately, a lot of defenseless elderly people have been assaulted and some have been killed as a result. And they've, even though we believe that all lives should be respected at this juncture, it is Asians who are being targeted for assaults. In that respect, the caucus is putting on a seminar with Sheriff Carlos Bolanos and DA District Attorney Steve Wagstaff on March 27th at 11 o'clock. You can register at www.smcapi.org. We also strongly encourage you as a city and your law enforcement to consider doing more strict enforcement and rigorous investigations of assaults against Asians. Pass the ordinance to raise the penalty for hate crimes. We also ask you to keep a database if you haven't already against assaults against any race, religion, or sexual orientations, especially Asians, and make sure the Asians are included in your database. We'd like you to create, strengthen your public and safety communication programs for the Asian American community. And we ask you to advocate and dedicate more resources to educate children and the broad system of racism, xenophobia, and different types of racism. We also ask you to hire and assign multi-Eastern language speaking community officers. You also ask, and finally, we ask you to create a program that welcomes engagement with law enforcement for immigrants and non-English speakers. Thank you for your time. And thank you for all the work you've done to fight assaults against Asians.
Thank you very much. Wayne, if you wouldn't mind maybe sending all your suggestions in an email to myself and also the city manager, and then it gives us an opportunity to be able to look at everything that you have mentioned to see what we can do.
We'll be very happy to do that. Thank you for your time.
Excellent, thank you. Is there anyone else? Okay, if not, I am going to close the public comment period. We will move on to our consent calendar. We have items 8A to 8K. Is there any item that any of my colleagues would like to take off the agenda? I have Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just briefly like to talk about item 8E, which is the California Bike Plan contract. Thank you.
You're welcome. I just want to, I'm not going to pull it off, but I just want just to clarify on item 8J, it is the Broadway Avenue Business Improvement District. They want to forego the assessments. That is for information only. So it's not necessarily, we're voting on all the items, but it is an information agenda item. Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a brief comment on item 8H.
All right. On that note, is there anyone from the public that would like to pull an agenda item off of our consent calendar?
Mayor O'Brien, I had 8E as well from a member of the public.
Okay, great. Thank you, Megan. All right, so it looks like then we will be voting on items 8A, B, C, D, F, G, I, J, and K. So is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. May I ask a quick mechanical question, which is the letter to the API caucus has all 5 of us signing. Are we doing that electronically, or what are the mechanics of that?
we'll send that through to you via DocuSign.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, I second the motion.
Okay, so motion made by Vice Mayor Ortiz, seconded by Councilmember Brownrigg. Megan, can we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Colson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes. And motion passes 5-0. So we will go then directly into item 8E, and that would be Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm also aware that there's somebody in the public who wants to speak. I consider this to be one of the most interesting roadway projects that doesn't cost $150 million that we could be doing to create a bike highway that's safe from one end of California to the other. I think is just a terrific opportunity. So I'm super excited. The only reason I wanted to pull it is I hope that, and I'm very excited to see the work that this contractor is going to do, because the staff report was very very appreciative of the quality of their bid and so on. The one thing I wanted to say is I hope that the contractor will keep in mind the opportunity of potentially, and I recognize how complicated it would be, but potentially using some of the land that abuts the rail. And I know that some of it's owned by SFPUC and some of it's owned by Caltrain, blah, blah, blah. But that is another opportunity, I think, for our city to use space more creatively that is otherwise sort of dead space. So I just hope that the contractor will also keep that opportunity in mind and maybe explore it as the contractor does their work to take this dream and make it reality. Thank you.
Commissioner Ortiz, or Vice Mayor Ortiz, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And what I'm really glad that you pulled this one off, Councilmember Brownrigg. If it wasn't for the mute button, you would have heard that I was asking to be pulled off too. So, but the interesting thing to me, I wanted to point out that we do have an award for $800,000 for the construction of this project. So this is just the engineering, and it just seems kind of odd time to be spending this kind of money. But this grant that we got, I think, makes a lot of sense. And I think it's a long time that we've been talking about this, and I think it's time to do it. So thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So Megan, it was in an email that you received from a constituent?
Yes.
Okay, would you mind reading that then, please?
This email is from Benito Velasco. He says, I think it would be helpful for the public to hear why the cost is so high at $250,000. This is the most expensive study and design consultant contract in at least the last 5 years. The last consultant contract to study and design a paved bike/ped path on the Caltrain side from Broadway to the BART station was only $150,000. It covers roughly the same distance. The contract to do the entire bike ped plan for the entire city, not just one street, was $200,000. Especially since the consultant will not be starting from scratch. We have a bike ped plan that already studied the alternatives and feasibilities and came up with a recommended design, a design that the city approved and adopted as part of the plan. It seems odd that we would again start from scratch and study alternatives all over again. If the city didn't agree with the design alternative recommended in the bike ped plan, why did it not change it then? The task listed for this new consultant looks familiar and duplicative. Finally, it would be of interest to hear how this project is coordinated with the Oak Grove/Carolyn Signal project, which will also be reconstructing the signals at California Oak Grove later this year. That contract will be on your agenda next time. Would it not make sense for that project to also make the signal changes necessary to make the bike lane work? The overhead signals may not line up with the new configuration. This seems like a missed opportunity. It is also unclear how the Louis and Packville El Camino construction has been coordinated to account for cumulative impacts. How will California Drive handle all the detour traffic and the reduction in capacity by both these projects? It might be useful to see all three project schedules overlaid to see the conflicts and opportunities, maybe on the same agenda.
Thank you, Megan. Is there anyone else from the public that would like to speak on this item? Okay, if not, Director Martuzza, would you like to add anything?
Madam Mayor and Council, thank you. This is one of the highest priority project that was recommended by the city's bike ped plan. And I would like to address a few questions that were raised tonight. One is Councilmember Brownriggs, that the opportunity to explore use of SWC or Caltrain's right away, that is already included in the scope. When we were looking at the bike ped plan, there were a number of alternatives that were identified as part of that project. Many of the alternatives that were identified have trade-offs involved that affect different stakeholders in different ways. So the bike ped plan did go into a level of detail, but there's a lot of more design details that need to be explored. And the stakeholders, the public, the residents, the businesses that are funding on these streets, they need to be closely coordinated. Therefore, all the alternatives that have been studied, they need to be looked at into detail, and the trade-offs need to be brought forth, and the City Council and the Traffic Safety Commission, the Bike Ped Committee, they all need to look at that. So it's not a slam dunk project that was, as suggested by the member of the public, that we just are going to draw some striping lane lines on the roadway. It's not that. It could be simple project to a class 2 facility to a separated bike project that Councilmember Brownrigg has been advocating for, and then also Councilmember Ortiz and other councils have been advocating. So it's a very extensive project and a very once in a lifetime opportunity to do what we can do the best. So the scope involved extensive public outreach and more diving down into the details, and therefore the cost of the project is as we have in the staff report. And we have other consultants, and the scope and the costs and tasks involved are all outlined, and this is consistent with industry standard. So it's not simply a drafting project, design project, but rather more extensive analysis and coordination with the public.
Thank you, Director Martuzza, for that explanation. So if everyone's okay with that, can I have a motion for that item?
Motion to approve, Madam Mayor.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Brownrigg, and I think that was Councilmember Beach that seconded it. Okay, very good. Megan, can we have a roll call on that, please?
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, motion passes 5-0.
Madam Mayor, can I ask you for one thing I just forgot to mention?
Sure.
I would like to mention that the traffic signal that is being proposed at the intersection of Oak Grove and Carolyn Avenue, that staff is working with the Traffic Safety Commission, will be coming to you in the near future. And that project and the details of what happens on California Drive will all be coordinated as whatever improvements are done on the bike project or the other project will all be syncing in together. I just want to make sure that I answer that.
Very good, thank you. All right, on to item number 8H. And Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to take the opportunity to flag this for the public and also highlight a few things for colleagues on council. And this is a resolution in support of the city's application for a rather large federal grant to once and for all fix that Broadway grade separation where the roadway meets the railroad intersection here in our city. And it's for a $117.4 million federal grant. Our staff is always busy running the city, but they have been working tremendously hard to put forth the greatest, strongest application we can to revise and improve from last year. Not a single dollar of infra funds flowed to California last year, but we're optimistic that there's a decent chance that we'll be competitive for this grant. Just want to thank staff for really working super hard. It's been an amazing team effort. And what might not be as visible to colleagues or the public is how hard the public work staff has actually been working closely with Caltrain to value engineer the project to try to even bring the overall costs down wherever possible so that it's a little bit easier lift. It's still a $300 million lift, but really can't thank City Manager Goldman, Niall Blackburn, and Director Matuza and their teams for tremendous effort. And hopefully with a little luck, we'll move the needle, move the peanut a little bit farther forward. So thanks to staff on that. And unless anybody has another comment, I'm sure we're going to get additional briefings on this project as the months go on, but I move to approve item 8H.
Second.
Before we move to approve, let me open it up to public comment first.
Don't have any emails.
Okay. Anyone listening in, if you'd like to comment, please raise your hand. Okay, if not, I know the motion was made by Councilmember Beach. Sorry, I do not remember who seconded it.
Ortiz.
Okay, very good. Vice Mayor Ortiz seconded. Those are actually, Megan, can we have a roll call on that, please?
Councilmember Beach.
Delighted to vote yes.
Councilmember Coulson.
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Yes, go get them.
Vice Mayor Ortiz.
Absolutely yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, motion vote passes 5-0. I mean, this has been a project we have been working on for many, many, many years. So it will be nice if we can get the funding so we can move forward with the plan that's been developed. All right, on that note, we will go into our public hearings, and we have one this evening, item 9A, and that is the adoption of resolutions making a statement of overriding consideration for an environmental impact report and for approval of an application for design review and conditional use permit for a condominium permit and tentative condominium map for a 120 unit condominium building located at 1868 to 1870 Ogden Drive. And we have Director Gardner here this evening to give us a staff report.
Thank you, Mayor O'Brien and members of the council. And let me do a share screen here. All right. The applicant is proposing to replace the existing one-story office building at 1870 Ogden Drive with a new 6-story, 120 unit residential condominium building. The site is within the North Burlingame mixed-use zone, which is a new zone that was created with the general plan update in 2019. This land use and zoning designation is intended to create a high-density development node within walking distance of the Millbrae multimodal transit station. Development approaches are required to emphasize a pedestrian-friendly environment and with design scale and massing that is sensitive to surroundings. The project before the council is consistent with the general plan and zoning, and because of that would otherwise not be subject to an environmental impact report or review by the city council, except for the historical aspect of the site. The historical aspect is from the existing building's role as the Teamsters headquarters in the 1960s and 1970s, and in particular, the labor dispute between the United Farm Workers Organizing Committee under Cesar Chavez and the Teamsters. From the late 1960s through the late 1970s, the UFW and the Teamsters waged a lengthy, violent, and occasionally deadly jurisdictional battle to decide who would represent farm workers in California. The building at 1870 Drive was the site of demonstrations as well as negotiations and ultimately a landmark labor agreement with Cesar Chavez in attendance, as you can see from this AP file photo from the time. Given this involved history, the building at 1870 Ogden Drive is considered a historic resource for purposes of the California Environmental Quality Act, or CEQA, under criterion A, which is for events. It is worth mentioning that the building structure itself is not considered to have historic significance architecturally. Certainly somebody might be a fan of brutalist architecture, but that doesn't rise to the level of architectural significance here. It is an office building typical of the era, but is otherwise not notable except for the events that occurred there, which are notable. Given the events, the draft EIR includes mitigation measures that would require documentation and interpretation regarding the significance of the building's history. These measures include a methodical documentation of the physical characteristics of the building and the historic context, with the display in the new plaza in front of the building. However, even with that documentation, because the historic resource would be demolished, it is considered a significant, unavoidable environmental impact. And that is what has triggered the need for an EIR and for the statement of overriding considerations. In terms of the EIR, all of the identified potential significant impacts can be reduced to less than significant levels through mitigation measures, with the exception of historic resources, and that impact is considered significant and unavoidable. Cities may certify an EIR that has a significant unavoidable impact by adopting a statement of overriding considerations and findings of fact. These determine that despite the significant impact, it is the city's considered judgment that the benefits offered by the new, in this case, 120 unit condominium project outweigh the potentially adverse effects of this significant impact. Among the considerations is that the proposed project would provide new housing units within half a mile of high quality transit, help the city meet its regional housing needs allocation or RHNA goal. The project is consistent with the development and vision for North Burlingame mixed use zone. Whoops, and I'm going way too fast there. Sorry about that. The project provides community benefits, including 6 units affordable to low-income households, a ground floor cultural arts space available to the community, and a publicly accessible plaza that would include a historical marker to commemorate the historic events. The proposed statement of overriding considerations is included as Exhibit C to the resolution. And lastly, I want to emphasize that the project is otherwise consistent with the general plan and remind that the general plan had its own EIR. That EIR evaluated the full range of potential environmental impacts, including traffic, greenhouse gas emissions, water supply, just to name a few. So I'll conclude my overview here. I haven't covered many of the details of the proposed development or the design, but the architects are here in attendance and have some slides prepared with a short presentation, so I'll defer to them for that. In terms of questions to staff, I'm joined by Leo Mena of ICF, which prepared the EIR and can answer questions on the environmental review, as well as Senior Planner Catherine Keelan, who has been the project planner for this application from the beginning and deserves the credit for assembling all of this information together. And this, with that, this concludes the presentation from staff.
Thank you, Director Gardner. Do any of my colleagues have questions before we open up to the presentation? Councilmember Coulson.
Yeah, so Kevin, I think this history is just incredibly fascinating. And I've always gone by that building, seen it, taken a look at it. The brutalist architecture is a little odd sitting in Burlingame, especially given around when that was done. But it always kind of attracted me as a cool site. How did all this history come up? Did it just come up through the EIR research?
Yeah, so, initially, none of us actually knew about it when we started. So the process started with, initially we thought it would be what's called a Class 32 CEQA exemption, which is basically a streamlining for projects that are consistent with the general plan and otherwise, you just it's a checklist. But as part of that, you need to clear your checklist, which includes, for any of these projects, we do a historical evaluation to make sure that there is not an impact on historic resources. And that's when the archival information came to light. I would expect there's members of the community who maybe do remember this from the day, but in terms of starting with this project, it was a surprise to us, and it is a very interesting story, and but was not something we knew until we got going on the process.
Thank you. I hope maybe the Burlingame Historic Society, it sounds like maybe they're aware of this. I don't know if they are or not, but I think it would be really interesting. They've been doing these little vignettes of history and posting them through COVID. I would really strongly recommend that they consider doing this one, and especially before the building is demolitioned, where they could actually go in and maybe walk around inside and take some videography and some pictures, because it's such a unique and telling history of the, both the racial tensions that existed in the unions, which are not often, are not often brought to light, but how and the sort of turf wars that even existed amongst the labor unions, and maybe we should make sure the Labor Council knows about this property as well, in case they have any interest in coming in and taking any photographs or helping with the history of it, because it's really it's such a unique story to tell. And I would have expected this in San Francisco, I would have expected it in Oakland, San Jose, Sacramento, but little Burlingame, it's kind of a wow, and it's actually really cool. Thank you for uncovering that.
Sure, and it's a couple things. First, it is interesting. This was extremely significant. It made national news, and it's interesting seeing Ogden Drive mentioned in the New York Times, and yet it was, because this is where it all happened, and this really was a fundamentally significant labor movement achievement. To the credit of the EIR, it does have a very detailed, methodical documentation
requirement.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of that, and so it does include lots of photo documentation, and it's impressive. And I know our historical society had looked at that, and it does follow all of the right protocols that are required when demolishing a historic resource, and does provide the archival for future generations. I think it's also interesting, a lot of people, driven by the site, never really known the history at all. So this is a chance for, given the interpretive work that will be included in the new project, it's a chance for people to learn about something that they would have not otherwise known about.
Thank you. Thanks for that background, and just such a fun and enlightening report.
Thank you, Councilmember Colson, and thank you, Director Gardner. I did find that history, fascinating, and I didn't know that. And this happened actually the year before I moved to Burlingame, so it was definitely an interesting read. I do have one question. I noticed that there is a conditional use permit for the tandem parking, and this may be for the architect once I open it up to the presentation. But I was kind of wondering, I was a little surprised that it isn't mechanical parking. So how inconvenient will this tandem parking be? Now, granted, on that note, they do have more than the required parking. So I think the required parking is 119 spaces, and there's 150 spaces proposed. So that is the balance, but I would be curious on the explanation of that.
Sure, and I know the architect can expand on this. Part of this was a preference of the applicant that just they, for whatever purposes, did not want to have the mechanical parking. They preferred and thought the tandem would work better. And the way the tandem would work is a tandem space would have to be assigned to one household. You can't have two different households sharing a tandem space. So it would be kind of similar to somebody with their car in their garage and then another car on the driveway. And it may be that the households that would be interested in having a tandem space, possibly maybe they use one car for most of the time and have a second car that they're using less of the time. Of the total spaces, there's 28 of them that would be tandem. So it is a minority of the units, and it's also not even all the 2-bedroom units. So I think the way it works, kind of back up a little bit with the parking standard being 1.5 spaces for the 2 bedrooms, you always have to figure out what happens to those half spaces. Basically, some people get 1, some get 2. And in this case, there's a choice of, some households may get 1, some may choose 2 side by side, independently accessible. And then another group may say that the tandem works just fine for them in that they just want to have a place to put 2 cars. So that's kind of the background, and I expect the architects can probably provide a little more insight on that as well.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, because my concern would be, I know just even for the R1 districts, people complain about, when they park in their driveways tandemly. So I just don't want us to have an influx of, cars parking out on the street if possible. But on that note, before I open it up to the architects in the presentation, are there any other questions from my colleagues? Okay, if not, let's open it up to the presentation. Who is going to lead the presentation? Is it Franco?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. My name is Franco Zaragoza, and I'm a partner with Levy Design Partners. And I just wanted to do a quick overview of the project. As staff has mentioned, we're providing a fully compliant building within the North Burlingame Mixed-Use District. In this development, we are designing to the 3-tier development standards. So this 120-unit building will be providing on-site affordable housing units, a public plaza at the front property line with directly adjacent public community cultural program space. In recognizing the historical relevance to the activities taking place here at the existing structure that will be demolished, we are providing an integrated public plaque on the plaza, recognizing the significance and the events that occurred here. Next slide, please. 1868-70 Ogden is situated mid-block between Murchison Drive and Truesdale Drive. The site is approximately a 1/4 mile from El Camino Real and a little over 1/2 mile to the Millbrae Trains transit system. It is proposed between a commercial building to the north and a neighboring multi-story unit building to the opposite sides and directly across the street. Our design process includes the evaluation of our context and working with the massing and form to directly relate with our contextual cues from the existing neighborhood. Next slide. This is our grade plan. Again, we're providing grade level parking with internal vehicle ramp to the lower basement parking. To speak with regards to the tandem question, we are providing dedicated individual spaces to 120 units. So it will be provided as an option for the most likely the 2-bedroom units to have the availability to acquire a tandem space. So there won't be a situation that one unit has to share a tandem space. It will be directly dedicated to an individual unit. Due to the public utilities running under the sidewalk, we will be providing on-site trees that will be establishing and creating a street tree-like rhythm to link with the already established trees further down the block. The front public plaza contains some informal seating areas and directly adjacent to the public program space. Next slide, please. So here's a closer rendition of that. So our design works closely with the landscape architect, and we wanted to really provide an integrated connection to the structure and the public plaza. Directly adjacent to these public spaces will be the more public community spaces, such as the program space and our lobby. Our lobby is accessed centrally from the central entry court, and it will be a secure residential entry point with a parcel area, direct access to the elevator and stair, and parking area, which will be closely linked to a bicycle parking area. Next slide. For the residential floors above, this is the typical plan. This is the podium level. The building is configured around a central courtyard. It's primarily a double loaded corridor building organized again around that central courtyard, which was a design move for articulation of form at the front, also for maximizing the light and air for our open space. We are providing a total of 35 studios, 31 bedrooms, 55 two-bedrooms, and our units will have direct access to the central court, along with some having private patios and decks. Next slide. The courtyard space was designed linking the connection to the ground floor plaza, opening up to the central courts below. This arrangement allowed us to create a building mass and vocabulary that creates a relatable scale contextually. Courtyard contains some seating areas and uses a residential community room centrally with some program space off of the community area. There will be privatized patios at the perimeter with planted buffer zones, providing a tiered screen. The perimeter of the building will contain privatized decks above the podium, and at this podium level will be patios. Next slide. This is a perspective rendering which illustrates the design process in its entirety. We've articulated the scale to meet the zoning guidelines. We are providing a geometry that conforms with the stepping of the building required by zoning and planning. And we've included geometry cues and connections with the adjacent buildings. You can see this in the articulation and grouping of windows, placement of sunscreens, and the subtle projections at the upper levels, which will relate to the adjacent buildings and cornices. Composition of materials complement the surrounding adjacent buildings. Again, we are integrating a grade level public plaza that will be backed by our community spaces such as lobby and public areas. With the use of high quality materials at the base and throughout the residential floors, this will be a quality addition to the neighborhood. So on that note, I'd like to conclude my presentation.
I think if I could say something, I think the only thing we wanted to share, if you go back to that one slide, is that marker on in the front there, that sort of dark orange, no, that the perspective, that is the historic marker. And what we're planning to do was take the information from the EIR and actually make a permanent history that will be much more detailed than just saying this is where the UFW and the Teamsters sort of duked it out. It was really meant to be a photographic history of what went on. And then the other thing that Franco did very nicely in the building is right behind there, you see the expression of the community room. So the community room is really meant to be an open space, whereas the entry to the building is subdued through the courtyard. So with the intent of using the tier 3 and providing the community room, we wanted to make it visible and open to everyone. So that's our project. And I do think that the public plaza will be used as a public plaza between the planting, the seating, and the depth of it.
Great, thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from my colleagues? Councilmember Brownrick, followed by Councilmember Coulson.
Thanks very much. And I recognize that we'll also have comment potentially from the public.
Yes.
So just a couple of thoughts and questions that I have. One, I appreciate, first of all, I want to say I completely endorse Councilman Coulson's comments that this history, I think, is really important. And I was glad to learn it. And as with Director Gardner, I was surprised. I mean, I think I reflect back on some of the debates the city has had about the first postmaster general and things like that, and where he may or may not have lived. And this is real history that affected thousands and thousands of people. And so I think it's super cool. I'd actually like to understand better what that historic icon is going to be. And maybe you don't have all the details, or maybe you do, but to me, that's very important. And I'm glad, Toby, that you suggested that it will be more fulsome than just, an agreement was signed here sort of thing. A suggestion, and that's all it is. First of all, I left my drafting pencils behind when I left the Planning Commission, so I'm not going to sit here and comment at all about architecture or use or the rest of it. I think our Planning Commission does a good job with that. But it did occur to me that on top of whatever podium or however you imagine informing the public that you might do is a replica of the Brutalist building, because I think that would be, I completely understand why we're not preserving it, but it is a very physically present building, and it will be a touch point for those leaders in the UFW and others who come back. And so that's a suggestion, and you might as well capture it before it gets knocked down. To that point, I wonder, when is demo scheduled? Is it weeks away or months away? Months away. So you're
Probably a year and a half away.
Yourself.
Probably a year and a half away.
Yeah.
So I would strongly suggest that collectively we look at an event a year from now, which would be March of 2022, which would be the 45th anniversary of the signing of that agreement, and bring back the UFW and Teamster, at least look to create that event, which I think could be a very moving event for a lot of people. So that's more by way of planting a seed, I guess. If it was going to get knocked down sooner, I would be more urgent about it. But I think both the city and the current ownership and the unions themselves might really appreciate having a chance to say goodbye to the building, if you will, and to all that it means. So that's my historic. I'm with Councilman Coulson. I really want to honor that history and hopefully allow people to learn from it. Switching to a different issue I have, and I suspect this is not the developer's problem, but our problem, which is I was disappointed by the number of affordable units. I am somebody who believes deeply that at this point on the peninsula, all housing is good housing, except maybe $10 million homes in Los Altos Hills. There's probably enough of them. But otherwise, I really do believe we need, all of the above. That said, we really need affordable housing. And why do we only have 6 units? And I'm not sure if that's best addressed to you, Toby, or to Director Gardner.
I can answer.
I actually
that.
think I'll have Director Gardner answer that question. I actually chatted with Director Gardner about the same question you brought up, Councilmember Brownrigg, so I will have him explain the answer that he told me.
Yeah, so if you think back to when the general plan was adopted in January of 2019, we also put in interim zoning for this area, and one of the intents was to make sure that the new projects coming through the pipeline would include affordable units. This was in advance of the city adopting its residential impact fee ordinance. So it was a little bit of guessing as to what should the affordability level be. So the choice written into the zoning was either 10% moderate, which is the same as what the residential impact fee ordinance ended up being. But we also had a choice of 5% low. So it's fewer units, but it is a category that historically the city has had a harder time meeting through market means. We do now have an affordable project that is able to do that through subsidies, but for a market rate project to reach the low income is a little harder. So that's where the 5% is. Looking forward, this was in the interim zoning. We expect that now we'll true it up with what's in the more recent residential impact fee ordinance, and just go with the 10% moderate. But that's the story of how this project, they had the choice and went with the 5% low.
And if you'll allow me one final comment, Madam Mayor, I actually knew that was the answer. I mean, I remember, but I think what I wanted to use this moment to do is to suggest to our staff and to my colleagues that when we set those numbers several years ago, we wanted to make sure we didn't inhibit building. We didn't want to set requirements so high that people wouldn't do anything and we'd have a useless plan. And I stand by that decision. But we also agreed that over a number of years, we would look and see whether we could ask for more without inhibiting development. And I would suggest we're getting to the point where the data is coming in, and I think a case could be made that we can ask for more going forward. So it's more by way of a marker for a future conversation, nothing to do with this project. I know they played by the rules. So I do appreciate it, and thank you for the design and the good work, and look forward to welcoming you to Burlingame.
Councilmember Coulson.
Thank you very much, Mayor O'Brien. I have a different question, but I'll just tag on to Councilman Brownrigg first of all, which is I also think not only around the housing, but maybe on the commercial linkage fees, we might want to take a look at those as well. So if we're going to do it, I would say a comprehensive review of both commercial and affordable housing fees, or housing and commercial fees around affordable housing. I guess that's the best way to say that. I just have a really couple quick questions maybe for Toby. So when I've driven by that building, there is a statue or something I can see in there. And I don't know if there's any, I guess what it leads me to ask, is there any artifact inside the building that would be important to preserve? Are there statues or artwork or the podium at which, or tables at which these were signed that maybe you don't have to be responsible for saving, but you know, we as a city or someone in the city might be interested?
It's been totally remodeled several times. And it's been anything from a dentist's office all the way to an insurance company to whatever. So whatever was there was long gone.
Okay, that's no problem whatsoever. And then with regard to the historic interpretation, I completely advocate for and hope that we can put a narrative together that includes the photography, the building, the photographs, maybe an explanation of the brutalist architecture movement and what was going on with that. I'm just envisioning, I'm thinking like, boy, someone could easily put this on the 11 most endangered lists throughout the United States, and it would very likely make it. I mean, I consider it to be a really important building. It's not going there. We're not going to advocate for that at all. But given that nature, I think that's why it really deserves, and I don't know if the council, Kevin, can have a say or a sign off on that, or the planning commission, or however that works. But I really want to make sure that's a robust interpretation. And Toby, I'll just offer out to you, my background is working on the National Trust for Historic Preservation, big board, and I'm really linked in with a lot of people, as I'm sure you are as well. But if there is anyone back in DC that you would like to talk to, or have resources or examples maybe that they could send of things that they think are really excellent interpretations, I would be so happy to make those connections and hook you all up on that.
You must know that in the conditions of approval, there is the requirement of the equivalent of a HAB survey before we demolish. So we're not going to do it. The client has to hire someone. So every surface will be photographed. They'll be, accurately without perspective, and that's sort of outside of our realm. I think there is the provision for the approval of the signage going forward, what the actual sign will be, where we've bandied about stuff. You'll see what we actually did was moved it to the sidewalk, so people wouldn't feel like, so it'd be like really front and center. We at first had it further in the plaza, But staff felt like, it wanted to be more of an announcement, which we agree with. And whether it's 2-sided or 3-sided, and that has to, the language has to be, ADA accessible. So, it's going to, have a certain degree of height as well. So we'll be able to have a lot of information. So I think, the other thing would be with the EIR, there's a substantial historic section, and, we just should be able to reference it somewhere going forward, because now that exists.
That's great. And you might even consider doing something really cool, like in the community room in the inside. I know it would be part necessarily of the required environmental impact mitigation, but like down at Burrell Bank in their boardroom, conference room, community conference room, they did these really amazing black and white photographs of some of the history of the building and the family and things. And so even, if it's not germane, but just, who were the farm workers, the UFC, who is Cesar Chavez, the United Farm Workers, something, like versus just what I'm going to call commercial art sticking in that private that space could be a lovely gesture from the owner to the community in a space that maybe will envision people being able to take a jacket off and not stand in the freezing cold of the summer heat, and might have a better opportunity to kind of just gaze along and learn more. And they make wonderful art and interior decors for these public spaces. So just another suggestion.
And as you know, we have this community room, which is technically not, we have 2 community rooms. The one upstairs is for the tenant. The one downstairs is for the public. And that has no assigned use, but I'm sure we'd be willing to consider putting, just that in there. So whenever the community uses it, they would have access to the history.
I think it would be wonderful. I think kids could walk over from the elementary schools and do it as a little field trip, mini field trip even. It would be really fun to let our little school kids, and there's like 3 or 4 really, between Millbrae and Burlingame, there's a bunch of really great little elementary schools within walking distance. And what a great way to have a walking field trip. So thank you for considering that.
Thank you, Councilmember Coulson. Anyone else? Councilmember Beach, followed by Councilmember Brownrigg.
I echo colleagues' comments. Councilmember Coulson, you're reading my mind of what an opportunity this is, not only for field trips, but really to create a bit of a destination in a part of town where people don't normally go there if they don't live there. And I love the idea of the public plaza there, and maybe we can think, or the project can think about a creative name for that plaza, whether it's Cesar Chavez Plaza or, the farm workers or whatever it could be. Maybe a creative name might be great to really make it a park destination. And I do echo Councilmember Brownrigg and Coulson's thoughts about making sure, unrelated to this project, that we're constantly looking to reevaluate our impact fees, not only for housing, commercial impact fees and linkage fees, but also for other impact fees as well. Thank you so much.
Councilmember Brownrigg.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Toby, your comment that one of the community rooms is for when you said it was a public plaza, I took that to be in the way that places that feel like private property call themselves public, but the public doesn't really feel welcome there. But you say that you have a whole room that is, quote, open to the public. So how does that get activated? Because I don't think most people will look at your building and say, oh, that's a place where I'm allowed to go in. So how do you see activating it?
Well, actually, it's technically not our room. It is technically your room. And I don't think it's figured out yet about how you use it. We're providing it. And I don't, and that was one of the tiered benefits. And we had talked to a whole bunch of people, like the library and stuff. And it's, nobody really wants the responsibility. So whether it falls within, park and rec or somebody to have the key, I don't think that's been determined yet. I think we're the first community room that's come with this zoning. So unfortunately, I have to throw it back to you and say, okay.
How interesting.
How do you do this? It's no longer our room.
How big is the room? I didn't pay attention.
Franco? I think it's like 2,000.
Wow.
It's
There's
big.
the room.
Yeah, that's the front room.
Pretty
It has a bathroom.
Has a bathroom.
Well, we absolutely, sorry, just to speak out loud, I know Ricardo has his hand up. We absolutely could turn that into a museum then of sorts to this building. I mean, it becomes our space to activate. That's super interesting. Thank you. I didn't realize that at all.
Councilmember Brownrigg, are you done with your comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Vice Mayor Ortiz. Vice Mayor, you want to?
Here we go. Right. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I was kind of holding off. I thought we were just asking questions, but I do have a few comments. When I see that room and that plaza, the first thing that comes to mind is naming rights for Mr. Cesar Chavez. So I can picture Cesar Chavez meeting room or Cesar Chavez Plaza. And I think it's great, the idea that I think was Councilmember Colson that talked about bringing some of the school kids. And I have the perfect date to do it is the Cesar Chavez Day for them to join there and learn a little history and go around and look at the pictures, which I think is a great idea. I think we can't lose the historical importance of the building. I think that's great. I was also struck with the number of affordable units. So I do think that it's time that we take a look at that. And again, if we end up exactly where we are, that's fine. But we should reconsider it. That it struck me as a low number. So I appreciate Councilmember Brownrigg bringing that up. Initially, I was very bothered with the tandem parking. But I mean, I understand the explanation, and I've seen it in other places where somebody has to back up the car for mom to get her car out. But it seems right. I think it's a great project, the perfect location. There's a building down the street that looks very similar. It's about the same height, and I think it'll fit great in the neighborhood. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Ortiz. Before I open it up to public comment, I do have a question. Maybe Director Gardner or Toby can answer. So I noticed with the environmental impact report, I'm assuming, some of the public might have this question. That's why I'm asking it. In regards to water usage, and due to the fact that we will be upzoning our general plan to 3,000 units in that Rollins Road area. And then we have, this project, we want to make sure that there's enough water to support all the additional units that we're thinking of futuristically. And the EIR did address it, and that, that we're in an okay position, but I just kind of wanted maybe for the public to have a little more expansive explanation. If Director Gardner, you wouldn't mind, or Toby.
Certainly, Mayor O'Brien. So the good news is the general plan EIR looked at water supply for that 3,000 units. So this project is within what's already been studied, and the general plan EIR, in looking at the water supply, identified that the water that is allocated to Burlingame in normal years is more than sufficient for including these new units. One thing that's interesting is multi-unit residential tends to have a lower per capita water consumption than other housing types or even some other land use types. So it's an incremental increase, but it is an increase, and there's enough within a normal year for the assigned water supply. In drought years, and this applies without any development as well as with development, as we already know, in drought years, there is water conservation, and that is a regional issue. So even if Burlingame were to never build another thing again, should there be a drought, all of the cities in this area will be asked to conserve water. So the expectation is that should there be a drought, with or without the additional development, water consumption or water conservation would be in the picture. So it's kind of a long way of saying it has been considered and evaluated and studied carefully. And this project is well within the parameters of what was expected in the general plan.
Great, thank you, Director Gardner. And then my follow-up question is, due to the community area that's close to 2,000 square feet, which is a great space. I just want to know, what would the process be to make sure, it's used at its highest capability. And I do think the museum idea is a good one, but we don't want that to drop through the cracks. So how do we get our maybe various departments involved in this? Let's say, for example, the library and the Park and Rec department, because I'm sure they would be beneficial to have, conversations with on how to set something up, whatever that may be.
Certainly, yeah, and that's something we can move forward on. I got a text from the project planner, and she was already right up there with you, saying, next step is to talk to parks, talk to library. I know from anyone who's had experience pre-pandemic of booking some of the different rooms in the city, whether it's library, meeting rooms, what have you, they have been highly sought after. So I would expect there will be demand, and particularly this is a part of the city that
doesn't have one.
Not had meeting rooms. So we will need to figure out who is responsible, and as Topi mentions, it's kind of the cities to determine that. But that's something that we can work with our other staff colleagues and figure out what's the best way to integrate that into the rest of our meeting rooms.
Great, thank you, Director. All right, on that note, I will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone on our call that would like to make any comments? It does not look like it. So I will close the public comment and then go back to my colleagues. So do my colleagues have further comments, or is there someone who would like to adopt the resolution and make a statement overriding considerations for the 6-story building that we have? And actually the verbiage for that is on attachment C to the resolution, which would be on page 3 of the resolution. Councilmember Beach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had one other final comment that occurred to me, and I don't know if I said it or didn't say it, but as we were talking about even Vice Mayor Ortiz's suggestion in our discussion of possible naming of a plaza, we mustn't also forget the Teamsters and the UFW as well. Certainly it was a Teamsters building, and celebrate the peaceful negotiations that happened there as opposed to the violence, but that sometimes violence is part of history, and we can't forget that as well. So hopefully it will be a great expression of remembrance for what is there. So with that, unless colleagues have further questions, I would move to adopt the resolution. And I'll ask our city attorney if I need to read all the different wording, but basically it's the certification of the final environmental impact report and making a statement of overriding considerations for the new 6-story 120 unit condominium building. And do we have to take them one step at a time, Mr. City Attorney?
You certainly can, but in this case, you can follow the recommendations in the staff report to pass both resolutions, making the overriding consideration.
Then I will so move that motion.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Brownrigg, seconded by Vice Mayor Ortiz. Councilmember Brownrigg, do you have a question?
Sorry, I put my hand up. It was Councilwoman Beach who made the motion.
Did I say Brownrigg? I'm sorry.
Oh, I know, because I put my hand up. I apologize for that.
Okay, Councilmember Beach made the motion, seconded by Vice Mayor Ortiz.
And I just wanted to briefly comment on the motion, which is I support this. I do hope the owner and architect will consider doing some sort of representation of the building out front that exists today. I think that would be a nice reminder. And it occurs to me, while it may not be urgent, that we ought to agendize in the future how we want to program this space and maybe other spaces that are going to pop up like this. I mean, I think it's super cool and an interesting opportunity in a part of town that doesn't have a lot of civic buildings. So anyway, I happily endorse the motion, of course.
All right, Megan, can we have a roll call on that, please?
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor O'Brien.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. So then we'll go into the second motion that needs to be made, and that's to adopt the resolution in regards to the design review, conditional use permit, and the condominium permit, and the tentative condominium map for the 6-story building located at 1868 to 1870 Ogden Drive.
Happy to make a motion to adopt those parcel maps and the rest of the materials, Madam Mayor.
And do you have a
I'll
second? So motion made by Councilmember Brownrigg, seconded by Councilmember Coulson. Megan, can we have a roll call on that?
Councilmember Beach,
Yes.
Councilmember Coulson,
Yes.
Councilmember Brownrigg,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Ortiz,
Yes.
Mayor
Yes, so motion passes 5-0. All right, next on our agenda, under staff reports and communications, we do have the consideration of the appointments to the Measure I Citizens Oversight Committee, and I think our city manager will take this.
I will, thank you. Good evening, Mayor O'Brien, members of the council. You are here to make some appointments to fill 3 vacancies on the Measure I Citizens Oversight Committee. And these vacancies are due to the expired terms of committee members Joe Galligan, Mary Hawkridge, and Neil Kaufman. Committee members Galligan and Kaufman elected not to reapply, and Mayor O'Brien honored them earlier this evening with certificates. So we did publicize the vacancies. We sent out notification letters, as we do for all past commission applicants. We received quite a bit of interest, 7 applications as of the deadline in February. You interviewed the following 7 applicants via Zoom: Kimberly Rosales, Kevin Hong, Linda Larson, Irv Agard, Fred Bauer, Mary Hawkridge, and Paul Smith. Mr. Agard subsequently withdrew his name from consideration, so you were down to 6 applicants. And should you select 2, they will serve for 3 years ending on February 20th, 2024. Happy to answer any questions.
Councilmember Beach, you have a question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not really a question, but a comment just for the record. I want to appreciate City Manager Goldman and all of you for recording those interviews. I'm sorry, I was chairing a Transportation Authority meeting at the county that night, but I was able to watch the meeting video and watch everybody's terrific interviews. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Beach. So do I open this up to the public, to our city clerk or city attorney for any comments before we go into voting?
Yes.
I would recommend it, yeah. I think
Okay.
we do.
All right, so I will open it up to the public. Are there any comments?
We have none.
Okay. I will close the public comment. And I just want to start out just by making a comment that, we had phenomenal applicants for this commission, and I thank them all. And if you are not appointed this evening, I am sure that we can find something for you to participate in. We're lucky to have, active commissioners, active people from the community that help us on various projects. And so please keep that in mind. All right, on that note, Megan, would you like to go through chat with our recommendations, or how would you like to proceed?
Why don't you send me a chat?
Very good.
We can't send chats only to you anymore.
So send it to all the panelists, but I'll read it out loud when it comes through.
Okay.
And so you will be sending 3, each of us will be sending our 3 people that we'd like to see appointed.
Correct.
So we should come up with a better system than this one. But sorry, I've got to start typing.
Okay. I think I'm just waiting for Mayor O'Brien. There we go. Okay, so Councilmember Beach, Hawkridge, Hong, and Rosales. I can't see everyone's names. Well, now I just disappeared my chat. Okay. Councilmember. Pop out. That'll help me see everyone's names. Okay.
You want me to send it again all together in one?
No, I just need to stretch it out so I can see your names and not just council member. Councilmember Colson is Hawkridge, Larson, and Hong. Councilmember Brownrigg is Hawkridge, Rosales, and Hong. Vice Mayor Ortiz is Hong, Masterson, and Smith. And Mayor O'Brien is Hong, Hawkridge, and Linda Larson. So I see a majority for Hawkridge and for Hong. And I think we have to one, but not for the 3rd. Am I correct, Lisa?
Who is Masterson a typo, Mr. Vice?
I think that's Mary Hawkridge. I think that's her maiden name.
That's her maiden name, Mary Masterson Hawkridge.
So I believe that we have 2 for Larson and 2 for
Rosales.
And then you had 1, oh no, that was it. 2 for Rosales and 2 for Larson. And Hong, I believe, had enough. Right, it's Hawkridge and Hong, I believe, got majority.
Now the second vote will be for one candidate.
Just for one candidate.
Right.
Right.
All right, so if everyone can type in the one person that they recommend.
Thought we had discussion first, but maybe not.
Okay, let's.
We have done that in the past.
If you want discussion, we can have that. Does anyone want to make a comment before we go our second round?
Well, I'm happy to make
Sure,
comment.
Councilmember Colson.
Yeah, I thought everybody was very well qualified for this job, but I picked Linda Larson because of her. She was a former councilwoman and had experience in Millbrae, moved to Burlingame in the last year or so. But I really appreciated how she had a very high level understanding of what the role of this committee was in the sense of not micromanaging the budget, not micromanaging what we were going to do, but just had a very high level. That's why I chose her, just so people know.
Councilmember Beach.
Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Colson. Amazing candidates. There's not one person that wasn't qualified or could handle this job, and they all had a really good understanding of what we're asking them to do. And just hats off to former mayor of Millbrae, Larson. We're so glad she's in the community as well. She'd be terrific. I ended up voting for Rosales, Kim Rosales. I think she worked really hard on the Measure I campaign. She's been a really longstanding, dedicated member, community member, and has a really good sense. Even was involved in our Parks and Recreation Department as staff at one point and won grants. And I just think that her record of community service, particularly surrounding Measure I, is just second to none. And she deserves, if she's interested in this committee, with her finance background as well, would be a real asset. Thanks.
Anyone else? Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. My choice was for Paul Smith. I thought he brought a good background to the interviews, and I thought that it would be a good addition, and especially since this is such a financial committee, I thought it would be very good. But having said that, I'm willing to be swayed, and I like what the council member Beach. Now, see, I almost called you Brown Rig myself. So I served with Kimberly Rosales in the past. I find her to be just extremely intelligent and great to work together with. So I think she would be a very good choice. And in order to arrive at a consensus, I'm willing to switch my choice. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, let's go with the next round of voting, please.
Okay. So we have Councilmember Beach, Rosales, Councilmember Colson, Rosales, Councilmember Brownrigg, Rosales, Vice Mayor Ortiz, Rosales, and Mayor O'Brien, Rosales. So we have a unanimous third choice.
All right, very good. So our three new commissioners will be Mr. Kevin Hong, Miss Mary Hockridge, and Kim Rosales. So we welcome them to the committee. But I would like to thank all the applicants. Like I said earlier and echoed by my colleagues, we just had a phenomenal bunch of applicants for this position. It's nice to have a choice, but it's hard to make those choices. All right, very good. So that leads us to our council committee and activities reports and announcements. Is there anything that my colleagues would like to add? Okay, if not, anything to put on future agenda items? Okay, and any acknowledgements this evening?
You know, I'm checking into this, but I believe there was a gentleman. The reason I'm going to mention this person is I think it was Sammy and Basari. I'll look up the name, but who was, you may have read about him in the newspaper this weekend. He was a shop owner in San Francisco who passed away from COVID, but was incredibly beloved by the community. And when I was reading the article, I saw a caption under one of the flowers that said, you know, at his memorial service in Burlingame. And when I looked and read through the article more deeply, I found out that he was a member of the Yassim Foundation here, and he was a very well respected member of our community from that perspective. So I checked with Salah Abarki to see if he had actually lived here, but I never did get a response. So I'm not sure if he lived in Burlingame, but he certainly worshiped in Burlingame. And given the outpouring of love for him in the community, I think it would be appropriate to close the meeting in his honor today. And if you give me a second, I'll make sure that it is Sammy Basio, B-A-S-S-I-O.
Very good, Councilmember Colson. So let's close an adjournment on memory of him. On just a reminder that our next council meeting will be on the 5th, but let's take a minute to acknowledge him. Thank you, Councilmember Colson, for bringing that to our attention. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
All right. On that note, everyone have a wonderful evening. And if you're not busy this Wednesday, we have our St. Patrick's Day car parade. Good night.